Hello class, welcome to our lesson today dealing with the beginning of chapter 5. Really what we're going to be looking at is just kind of an overview of a lot of things we've already done this year. I just want to make sure that we're on the right track and we review a few things before we start into the rest of chapter 5. First thing we need to make sure of is simplifying fractions. Okay, we're going to be dealing a lot with fractions in chapter 5 because of rates and ratios and proportions. Many of you have simplified fractions such as 15 over 30 by dividing by 15 on the top and bottom. This piece here, like this division part, divide by 4, I don't know if you have to have that there, but if you're struggling with division and simplifying, I would definitely put that in there. This becomes 3/9. Don't forget you might be able to simplify again, which meant you probably could have divided by a higher number to start with. But sometimes you don't see it, and you just divide out, and that would be fine as well. One side note, dealing with zeros, if you see zeros on the top and bottom, and those can just cancel because that's really dividing by 10. And so that becomes 4/5. And the bottom right one, one thing that many of you will want to kind of start remembering is 17 times 3 is 51. A lot of people think 51 is a prime number, but it's not because it's 17 times 3. So these both divide by 17, and so it ends up being a 2 and a 3. When you're doing these types of questions, I don't know if you need a lot of work shown, but make sure you can simplify your fractions. Next scenario is saying if two fractions are equivalent. If two fractions are equivalent, that means they simplify down to the same thing. Okay, so for example, 4 out of 10 simplifies down to 2/5. 15 over 40 simplifies to 3/8, so those aren't the same. They may be close to one another as a decimal, but they're definitely not the same. 3/8 and 6/11 clearly aren't the same because you can't simplify them at all. One other option is it should be obvious here because 3/8 is less than a half and 6/11 is greater than half. But in order for them to be equivalent fractions, they should simplify down to the exact same thing. So for example, 2 over 4 is the same as 1 over 2, and those both equal 0.5 or 1/2. Next thing is just a review of solving equations. Remember, if you have division of something, you get rid of that by multiplication on both sides. If you have multiplication of something, you get rid of that by division. Also, don't lose track of your negative signs. Some of you have missed that on previous tests. Those negative signs are important to make sure that you have the answer. So keep track of those as you're going through. I am hoping that this idea has been getting a little bit better for everyone. It's looking better as a class, so let's make sure we keep working on those ideas as we move forward. The next two, don't forget if there's a fraction coefficient, you divide by that fraction to get rid of it, but to divide by a fraction is multiply by its reciprocal. So you should be multiplying by positive 4/3 on both sides. And then don't forget you can cross simplify a little bit, and this ends up being just y equals 28. For the second one, it's okay if the variable is on the right side. If that bothers you, you should switch it around. But you should divide by negative 0.9 on both sides, and that will give you y equals 3 as your final answer. Negative 3. Okay, don't forget one negative and one positive number when you divide them out will get you a negative answer. The next one says you and your 3 friends spend $35 on tickets for the movies. Find the cost of one ticket, P. You have to use the letter P because it says so in the question. The other thing is, why would it be 4 times P? A lot of people miss this because they do 3 because they say 3 friends, but don't forget yourself. Okay, so there's 4 of you, your 3 friends and yourself. So please don't forget that as you're looking at these scenarios. So it should be 4P equals 35. Because it says to write and solve an equation, you have to write and solve an equation. Many of you can find this answer of $8.75 a ticket, okay, in different ways, but you got to make sure that you set up your equations. Now, some of you have been doing different styles of equations. I want you really to focus in on doing 1- and 2-step equations like what we've shown here or these past slides, okay, like these. When you're looking at those scenarios, I want you to kind of think about it from that perspective, and then you use the same results from these scenarios to help solve a question like this one. Okay, finally, 2-step equations. You should kind of be on autopilot mode. Get rid of +1 by doing get rid of -1 by doing +1. Make sure negative 19 plus 1 is negative 18 because that's 1 negative, 1 positive. 18 is 19 minus 1 and it's negative. And then divide both sides by 3 to get x equals negative 6. Second one, get rid of +2 by doing -2 on both sides. Don't forget you could write those horizontally, so it would be 4z plus 2 minus 2 right next to it on the right side equals 20 minus 2 right next to it on the right side. That's another way you could write this situation, and then divide both sides by 4. This final answer could be a decimal 4.5, decimal 4.5 or a fraction of 4.5. Either option would be fine in this situation. Okay, your homework has a lot of questions. Pick odds or evens. You decide and go through and make sure you know what you're looking at for those scenarios. All questions that are on that worksheet are fair game. They're all review ideas. They should be things that you should be fairly comfortable with. If you're really stuck on a section, that gives you a whole nother set of questions. So if you did odds, then you have the evens to be able to look at later as a good study tool to make sure you understand the topics that we've talked about today. Have a good day, everyone.